Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. I didn't notice anything strange when I got home. The lights were on, the TV was playing some mindless reality show, and there was a half-eaten sandwich on the kitchen counter. But I wasn't really paying attention. I was too busy trying to pretend I still belonged in my own home. That's when my phone buzzed. One message. From my wife, Sabine. I have my own life, and it doesn't always include you. I read it 3 times. I wasn't sure if it was meant to be cruel or careless, but either way, it hit like a cold punch to the chest. It wasn't angry. It wasn't emotional. It was clinical, like a line rehearsed for someone else entirely. And suddenly, everything around me stopped making sense. The warmth of our home, the smiling wedding photo on the mantel, even the dent in the wall from when we accidentally dropped the bed frame during our move-in day 7 years ago. None of it felt real anymore. I should have said something smart, something clever, but all I could manage was, from now on, it doesn't include me at all. I left the message there. No emojis, no explanations, just like hers. Then I stood up, walked to the bathroom, and sat on the closed toilet lid like a ghost of myself. My legs were shaking, but I wasn't crying. I wasn't even angry, just hollow. It's hard to explain what it feels like to realize you've been optional in your own marriage. To know someone you share your life with has slowly stopped inviting you into it. You want to know what made it worse? This wasn't even out of nowhere. Sabine had been evolving lately. That's what she called it. I'm finding myself, she'd say while spending hours on her phone, scrolling through accounts of other women who had escaped boring lives. I never thought she saw me as part of that boredom. She had a new group of friends from some empowerment workshop she attended last fall. Most of them were recently divorced, and they treated me like I was a leash around her neck. At first, I laughed it off. I thought maybe it was just a phase. I even encouraged her to explore her independence, because that's what good husbands do, right? But slowly, I became background noise. She stopped laughing at my jokes, stopped sitting next to me during movies, started dressing up more, but only when she was going out. And every time I asked if she was okay, she'd respond with that same exhausted sigh and say, "Why do you always assume something's wrong?" You want to know why, Sabine? Because I stopped feeling like a husband and started feeling like a placeholder. But still, I stayed. I tried. I made dinner when she was late. I brought her coffee in bed on Sundays. I handled her mother's insurance claim when she didn't want to. I listened to her rant about work even when she didn't ask how my day was. I did everything I thought a man was supposed to do to keep his marriage from sinking. Turns out, I was patching holes in a ship she'd already decided to abandon. That text message wasn't a warning shot. It was a confirmation. I didn't wait for her to come home. I packed a single bag. Just clothes and a folder I'd been secretly keeping in the closet behind my old guitar case. Documents, bank info, receipts. I didn't even take the charger for my work laptop. Just grabbed what I needed and left. No note. No door slam. No drama. She wanted a life that didn't always include me? Fine. Let's see how it feels when it never does. But the story didn't end there. Because just 3 hours later, as I was checking into the cheapest extended stay motel I could find, my phone lit up again. 22 missed calls. And one message that made my hands go cold. "Lowell, where are you? Something happened. Please come home." Something happened? Oh, something had definitely happened. And the truth she had been hiding was about to come crashing through the walls of her shiny, self-discovered life. I didn't sleep that night. Not because the motel bed was uncomfortable, though it was, or because the radiator groaned every hour like a dying animal, but because I couldn't stop staring at my phone. Not out of longing, out of suspicion, out of a gnawing feeling in my gut that told me Sabine's message wasn't just cold. It was a cover for something far uglier. The last thing she'd texted, "Something happened. Please come home," echoed in my head like a riddle with a missing piece. What happened? Why now? And why did her voice, when I finally listened to her voicemail, sound more panicked than guilty? So, I started digging. I remembered we still had a shared mobile account. We'd signed up for it years ago when we thought saving $20 a month meant something. I logged in, mostly out of curiosity, maybe pettiness. I don't know what I was expecting. Maybe a flood of long midnight calls to Mia or someone named Derek. But what I found made my stomach twist. Dozens of calls and texts to a number I didn't recognize. Every day, every night, always at odd hours, 11:46 p.m., 2:13 a.m., 5:08 in the morning. And not short ones either. Some were over an hour long. The name saved on her contact list for that number was Coach. I had never heard her mention a coach. Not for fitness, not for work. Definitely not for life. So who the hell was Coach? And why was my wife texting him more times in a single week than she'd spoken to me in a month? I copied the number into a search bar and felt a familiar knot tighten in my throat as it auto-filled with a name. Victor Halden. The man who ran that self-growth retreat Sabine had gone to last fall. The one she said had opened her eyes and helped her realign her energy. I remembered brushing it off when she came home glowing and distant, like someone who had been hypnotized into enlightenment. She talked about him like he was some kind of guru. I never thought he was a threat. Turns out, I wasn't just competing with her self-worth. I was competing with him. Now things started making sense. The late nights, the new dresses, the trips she claimed were girl weekends. Even the detachment, the emotional vacancy that had slowly eaten away at the woman I once knew. She wasn't growing. She was grooming a new life. With someone else. I felt stupid. Stupid for not seeing it. Stupid for trying so hard. Stupid for thinking that maybe, just maybe, I could bring her back. But I wasn't going to spiral. Not this time. I needed clarity. Proof. I still wasn't sure what her end game was. Whether she was planning to leave me, push me out slowly, or keep me around like an old sweater she couldn't quite throw away. So I made a decision. I would go back to the house. Not to talk. Not to beg. To watch. I waited until noon the next day, when I knew she'd be out. She always did lunch with her Monday book club, which was code for brunch with the retreat girls. I knew her patterns better than she did. I parked 2 blocks away and walked the rest, hood up, head down. The garage was empty. Good. I let myself in through the back, using the old trick with the screen door latch that she never bothered to fix. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I moved through it slowly, like I was walking through the ruins of my own life. Everything looked the same, but it felt wrong. Her scent lingered, but it didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like I was trespassing. And then, as I stepped into the living room, I saw it. An envelope on the coffee table, addressed to me. No stamp. No pen. Just block letters in thick black Sharpie. Lowell. Inside was a letter. 1 page. Neat, structured. Like it had been written weeks ago and revised multiple times. Lowell, if you're reading this, you've already figured some of it out. Please believe that I never meant to hurt you. I just changed. I became someone I don't recognize, and I needed someone who saw that version of me, not the one you kept hoping would come back. It went on, and with every word, my heart cracked in a different place. But what broke me wasn't the letter. It was what I found behind it. A key. And a photo. Sabine. Sitting across a candlelit table. With Victor. Holding hands. Smiling. Looking like the version of her I hadn't seen in years, because she'd given it to someone else. And suddenly I understood. Her message wasn't a cry for help. It was a test. To see if I'd still come running. But this time I wouldn't. I don't remember walking back to my car. All I remember is gripping that photo so tightly in my hand that the edges tore and my palm burned. That image, her eyes lit up across the table, the way her hand rested under his like it belonged there, it was more than betrayal. It was confirmation that she had emotionally moved on long before I ever left. I sat in the car with the door shut and windows rolled up, staring at nothing. Not crying, not yelling, just unraveling quietly. My thoughts bounced between anger, shame, and an unbearable urge to ask why. Why wasn't I enough? Why didn't she talk to me? Why did she let me keep trying if she'd already chosen someone else? But I already knew the answer. People don't cheat because of what's missing in their partner. They cheat because of what's missing in themselves. And Sabine? She had always been chasing something, validation, admiration, whatever gave her a temporary high. I was just the guy who stood still while she ran in circles. I didn't go back to the motel that night. Instead, I parked outside the restaurant from the photo. The one in the background, the distinctive red and gold awning of Lysindra, that upscale place Sabine always said was too stuffy for us. I knew she'd been there recently because the timestamp on the printed receipt behind the photo was just 3 nights ago. And there was a reservation name on it. V. Halden +1. I waited. Not because I had some grand plan or because I thought I'd confront them. I waited because I needed to see her in that world, the one I was never invited into. At 7:03 p.m., she arrived. Alone. Hair curled, heels too high for comfort, that dress I hadn't seen in years, The deep green one I bought her for our anniversary. She used to say it made her feel like someone important. She walked in with a soft, expectant smile, looking around like she was about to meet a lover in a movie scene. She disappeared behind the heavy glass doors, and I felt my heart rate spike. I didn't want to go in. I didn't want to need to go in. But something pulled me out of the car like a tide. I entered the restaurant and kept to the edge, pretending to be checking my phone. She hadn't seen me. She was seated at a corner table near the back, sipping white wine, legs crossed, phone face down on the linen. For a moment, she looked nervous, then annoyed. She checked the time. 15 minutes passed, then 20, and Victor never showed. Instead, a waiter approached her and placed something on the table. I couldn't see what it was until she picked it up, a small envelope, identical to the one I found on the coffee table at home. Her face paled. Her fingers trembled slightly as she opened it. I stepped back before she could spot me, slipped out the door before I did something irrational. But the image of her sitting there, completely alone, unraveling quietly just like I had the night before, stuck with me. Later that night, I got another message from her. I didn't plan this. Please, can we talk? That was followed by a missed call, then another. I muted my phone. The thing is, she was right about one thing. She did have her own life. What she didn't realize was, so did I. I'd already called an attorney. I'd already transferred half of our joint savings into an account she didn't know existed. The one I opened the year she forgot our anniversary for a yoga retreat in Oregon. And the next morning, I had a meeting scheduled with someone who had a very particular set of skills, someone who could help uncover everything she'd been hiding. I didn't need her confession anymore. I was going to build the truth piece by piece, and when I was done, she'd finally understand what it meant to be excluded. The morning came slowly, like it was deliberately dragging its feet to give me time to second-guess everything. But I didn't. I was wide awake by 6 a.m., sitting in the same car I'd been sleeping in for 2 nights now. Engine off, keys clenched in my hand. My back ached, my clothes smelled like regret, and my head was buzzing with one clear mission: find the truth before she twisted it. I arrived early to the meeting. The man I was about to speak with wasn't a private investigator in the classic sense. No trench coat, no fedora. His name was Carter Devlin, a data consultant who specialized in digging through digital shadows for people going through divorces. A friend of mine from work had used him when his fiancée accidentally forgot to mention a second apartment in another city. We met in a quiet coffee shop, tucked behind a strip mall. Carter was already seated, typing something on a laptop covered in tape and coffee stains. He looked up, gave a short nod, and gestured for me to sit. I only take clients who want the truth, not revenge, he said, like he was reading from a script he'd memorized years ago. I didn't say anything. I just slid a small folder across the table. It held the letter Sabine had left, the photo of her with Victor, and a printout of the phone log. Carter scanned it in silence. He didn't blink much. When he looked up, he asked one question. You want to know how deep it goes? I nodded once. Then you need to be prepared for the fact that this isn't just about another man. It might be about another life entirely. I wasn't sure what that meant. Not yet. But within 3 hours, Carter had sent me a message that made my knees weak. It was a screenshot, Sabine's name linked to a social media profile I'd never seen before. Not Facebook, not Instagram. Something else, a more niche platform for professional networking. Only this account didn't list her as married. It didn't list me at all. Instead, it described her as a wellness advisor, with ties to several coaching programs across the West Coast. There were testimonials, smiling photos, travel dates, collaborations, retreats. One listed co-host, Victor Halden. There was even a picture of them together, her head resting on his shoulder in front of a cabin in the mountains. Dated 6 months ago, during the same week, she told me she was helping her cousin recover from surgery. I scrolled until I found something worse, a flyer. A full-color promotional flyer for a couple's retreat, intimacy, and alignment weekend. Sabine and Victor were listed as the guides. And the tagline read, "For those ready to leave behind what no longer serves their heart." I felt like someone had knocked the air out of me. She had built an entire identity without me. A public, curated, vibrant version of herself where I didn't exist. She wasn't just cheating physically. She was erasing me emotionally, rewriting her story for strangers while I sat at home folding laundry and wondering why she didn't kiss me goodnight anymore. It was one thing to lie. Another to live a lie so comfortably that you forget you ever promised someone else a forever. Carter called me an hour later. You still want to see the rest? He asked. What rest? I asked, already regretting it. There's more than one man. One of them sent money. A lot of it. My throat tightened. I couldn't speak. Carter continued anyway. She's got a second account under her maiden name. Venmo, PayPal, Zelle. Private coaching sessions, she calls them. I think you know what that means. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I just sat there, staring at the screen, watching the life I thought I was living collapse into something unrecognizable. She hadn't just excluded me from her present. She'd rewritten our past, too. And now that I'd seen the truth, there was no going back. I spent the next 2 days in a kind of silence I didn't know was possible. Not the peaceful kind, the kind that screams inside your chest, echoing through every thought with questions you're too scared to ask. The motel room grew smaller by the hour, like the walls were closing in with every truth Carter uncovered. I stopped checking Sabine's messages. I stopped listening to her voicemails. All of them were variations of the same desperate tone, confused, remorseful, manipulative. She wasn't asking what she'd done wrong. She was asking why I wasn't reacting the way I used to. But I had changed, and I wasn't done uncovering what she had kept hidden. Carter sent me another report late that evening. This time, it came with a list of names, clients Sabine had worked with privately through her coaching business. Most of them were women, according to their usernames. But two were married men. One stood out immediately, Daniel E. Millen. It clicked because I remembered that name from a card Sabine once brought home from a retreat. He's one of the investors, she'd said casually, before tossing it into the kitchen drawer. At the time, I thought nothing of it. Now I felt sick. I didn't want to go down the rabbit hole, but I already knew I wasn't climbing back out until I'd hit the bottom. I found Daniel Millen on LinkedIn, then Facebook. His page was locked down tight, but one profile picture showed him with a woman and 2 kids in front of a beach house. Happy, clean, married. I didn't message him. Not then. But I did something I never thought I'd do. I created a burner account. I sent a message to his wife. Simple, direct. I think your husband may have crossed paths with Sabine Lowell. If that name means anything to you, I'm willing to share what I've found. She replied 2 hours later. Her name was Tasha. Her reply was short, but it changed everything. You too. Those 2 words hit harder than anything else I'd seen so far. We exchanged messages cautiously. She didn't want to believe it either, but once she saw the flyer for the coaching retreat, she said her blood ran cold. She'd never been invited. She didn't even know Daniel had been to California twice that year. Trips he claimed were work-related. And just like me, she'd started doubting herself instead of him. But here's where it really broke open. Tasha told me she had found hotel receipts hidden in a work folder. She'd confronted Daniel weeks ago. He denied everything. Said she was being paranoid. Claimed Sabine was just a business mentor. Tasha hadn't believed him, but she also hadn't had proof. Until now. She asked for one thing, a phone call with Carter. She wanted help digging deeper. She wanted what I wanted, the full truth. I agreed. I connected them the next morning. And just like that, this stopped being a personal crisis and started feeling like an unraveling operation, one that might expose just how far Sabine's web of deception stretched. Meanwhile, Sabine kept trying to reach me. She even sent flowers to my office. I wasn't there to receive them. The receptionist texted me a photo of the card. Please come home. I'm scared. I miss you. S. Scared of what exactly? That I'd left? Or that I'd finally seen behind the curtain? She didn't know that I'd already pulled the financials from our joint account. She didn't know that I'd locked my name off the home's deed 3 days ago. She didn't know that the quiet man she thought would never leave had started telling other people what he knew. And she definitely didn't know that a third name had just appeared in Carter's report. Another man. Another string of payments labeled guidance session. Same dollar amounts. Same emojis. Same lies. This wasn't emotional confusion. This was a pattern. And if I kept digging, I had a feeling I'd find out that I wasn't the only one she'd erased from her life when it became inconvenient. I had given her years of quiet loyalty. Now, I was done being quiet. The plan came together slowly, not because I was trying to be clever, but because I was still learning how to stop shaking. The more I uncovered, the more I realized I hadn't just been betrayed. I'd been replaced, silenced, and rewritten. I wasn't a person to Sabine anymore. I was a placeholder for the man she was waiting to become available. Or men, Plural. The fact that there were others only made it worse. This wasn't a mistake. It was a lifestyle she curated while I poured coffee for her in the mornings, thinking we were okay. By Friday, I had all I needed. Carter had confirmed a total of 3 married men Sabine had been involved with over the past 2 years. All of them had wired money. All of them had joined her exclusive coaching platform, where she sold them a fantasy. Every relationship started the same way. A video consultation, a one-on-one session in a luxury hotel, and then a recurring wellness contribution labeled under vague terms like energy alignment or healing immersion. But what none of them realized was that they were part of the same game. What Sabine didn't realize was that I had invited 2 of those men, including Daniel, to a lunch meeting at the very restaurant where she and Victor had last been seen together. She wasn't supposed to show up. That part was fate. I had reserved a table for 3 under my middle name. Daniel arrived first. Quiet, tense, avoiding eye contact. He had that look I knew all too well. The look of someone who wanted to be wrong but couldn't lie to himself anymore. The other guy, Mark, came in 10 minutes later, looking exactly like the kind of man Sabine had always secretly admired. Confident, financially sharp, wore a suit to a casual meeting. Both of them were polite. Both of them were ruined. And both of them were under the impression that they were the only ones. Until I laid the evidence on the table. For the first time in this mess, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like the guy holding the last piece of the puzzle. I showed them the transfers, the photos, the overlapping dates, and then I dropped the flyer for the intimacy and alignment weekend in front of them. Same weekend, same location, different names. They didn't speak for a long time. Daniel turned red. Mark got up and left for several minutes. When he came back, he looked 10 years older. And then, just as we were about to leave, Sabine walked in. She froze the moment she saw me. Her lips parted slightly, like she was about to say my name, but then she saw the other 2. Her eyes flicked from face to face, like she was trying to do the math and couldn't believe the total. The color drained from her cheeks. She didn't sit down. She didn't speak. Just stood there, still wearing the green dress I bought her, holding a leather folder in her arms like it could protect her from what was happening. I looked at her, calmly, and said, "You said your life didn't always include me, so I made sure mine doesn't include you at all." She tried to speak then. "Oh, Lowell, please." Or maybe some other line she rehearsed in her mirror. But I stood up, placed a copy of the letter she left me on the table, and nodded to the waiter. The bill was already paid. Daniel followed me out. Mark didn't. I don't know what happened between them afterward. I didn't care. All I knew was that Sabine had walked into a version of her future that she didn't control. Later that night, she sent me a final text. "I never thought you'd actually leave." That's what hurt the most. Not the cheating. Not the lies. Not even the gaslighting. It was the fact that she truly believed I'd stay no matter what. That I'd keep folding laundry, making coffee, paying bills, and swallowing my pride while she built a life that quietly deleted me from the picture. But I wasn't going to be her footnote. And the world was about to know exactly what she'd done. I wasn't planning to go public. Not at first. I'm not the type to air dirty laundry. I thought maybe walking away in silence would be enough. Maybe packing up my name, my dignity, and the broken remains of our marriage and vanishing from her life would give me peace. But when Carter sent me the final report, silence no longer felt like a noble choice. It felt like complicity. Sabine hadn't just manipulated me, or Daniel, or Mark. There were others. Not all romantic, not all obvious, but all touched by the same pattern. She'd used her coaching platform as a front. Men who had been lonely, broken, uncertain. Some were recently divorced. Some were older. Most were successful. All of them had one thing in common. They thought she cared. She didn't. She sold the illusion of transformation, intimacy, emotional safety, and in return, they paid. Sometimes in money. Sometimes in secrets. One man even signed over rights to a rental property in Arizona. Carter uncovered it through public records. The deed was in her name now, and she had the audacity to call it healing work. I couldn't sit on that anymore. So I made a decision. I compiled everything. Every document. Every screenshot. I wrote out the timeline of our relationship, her sudden shift, the hidden life she built online, the transactions, the flyers. I left out anything illegal. I wasn't looking for legal trouble. I was looking for truth. Then I created a post on a popular relationship forum. I told the story not as a victim, but as a man who had finally stopped apologizing for not being blind. The post went viral in less than 24 hours. Messages poured in, some from strangers offering support, others from people who knew her. One woman claimed she'd attended a retreat where Sabine got too close to one of the married guests. Another said she'd applied for one of Sabine's coaching programs, only to back out after a strange Zoom call where Sabine had asked probing questions about her financial situation. It was worse than I thought. And then came the message that sealed everything. A former co-worker of Sabine's, from before she ever became a coach, sent me a voice note. In it, she described how Sabine had once bragged that married men are safer. They won't ruin your reputation because they've got more to lose than you do. I sat there, listening to it over and over, until my hands stopped shaking. The next morning, I woke up to a missed call from Sabine. No voicemail this time. Just silence. Then she texted, "How could you do this to me?" Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "You're right." Just, "How could you?" As if I had destroyed something she built with integrity. As if revealing the truth made me the villain. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the full report to every one of the men Carter identified. Quietly, privately. I didn't want drama. I wanted them to know what they were really dealing with. One of them replied within minutes. A father of 4. His message was short, and I'll never forget it. "You may have saved my marriage." That hit me harder than anything Sabine ever said. Because for the first time in this whole miserable unraveling, something good came out of it. Something honest. Something real. Sabine didn't reach out again that day. But Carter called me that evening. His tone was different. "She's trying to file a takedown request," he said. "She's saying the forum post is slander." "But it's all documented," I replied. "I know. And that's why she won't win." The truth was a quiet thing. It didn't yell. It didn't beg. It didn't threaten. It just stood there, solid and undeniable. And Sabine, for the first time in years, had no idea how to silence it. The day the divorce papers were finalized, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel broken either. I just felt clean. Like I had finally stepped out of a storm that I didn't even realize I'd been standing in for years. I was no longer waiting for answers, no longer scanning her words for truth. There was nothing left to figure out. Only the rest of my life to rebuild. Sabine didn't show up to court. Her lawyer did. The same woman who once told me I was lucky to have someone as ambitious as Sabine now avoided eye contact while I signed the last page of our shared history. I handed back the pen, slid the papers across the table, and stood up with nothing but my keys and a new address waiting for me. Funny thing about starting over, it doesn't feel like revenge. It feels like breathing for the first time after holding it for too long. I didn't send Sabine a message. I didn't leave her a voicemail. I didn't even glance at her profile, though Carter told me she had rebranded her coaching company within days of the forum post going viral. "New energy, new truth," her tagline read. She still didn't get it. Meanwhile, I got messages from strangers, people who had read my story and said it gave them the courage to ask hard questions in their own lives. A few even thanked me for putting words to what they'd been too ashamed to admit. That sometimes being the quiet one just means you've been absorbing damage for too long. That weekend, I moved into a small but sunny apartment near the coast. Nothing fancy, but it had something I hadn't felt in years: peace. No silent tension. No carefully calculated words. Just space. And quiet. And me. A few weeks later, I signed up for an evening class, photography, something I'd abandoned years ago. I walked in with a camera so old the instructor laughed, but I didn't care. I was there to see things differently. And I did. There was a woman in the class named Julia. She was smart, funny, quiet in the way I used to be. We talked after class. We laughed. She didn't ask about my past, and I didn't offer it. Not yet. But for the first time, I wasn't dragging a shadow into something new. I was just present. And maybe that's the real ending. Not a dramatic confrontation or a public takedown. Just a quiet, ordinary moment where I realized I didn't need to be part of her story anymore, because I was finally writing my own. So yeah, if you're still watching, thank you. Not every story ends in fire. Some end with clarity, with peace, and with a gentle reminder that sometimes walking away isn't weakness. It's wisdom. This has been Reddit Confessions. Tell me in the comments, what's one real event from history that taught the world a powerful lesson? I want to hear your thoughts. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that remind us how complicated and powerful the truth can be.